Just heard 4. Okay.
Yes.
Hello.
I was running a little bit.
Hold you to a higher standard.
Call to order the regular board meeting for the Rainbow Municipal Water District Board of Directors for Tuesday, June 25th, 2024. Roll call, please.
President Hamilton,
Here.
Vice President Johnson,
Here.
Director Mack.
Here.
Director Townsend Smith.
Here.
Director Dale.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Will you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any additions, amendments, or deletions from the agenda?
There are no additions or amendments to the agenda.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as published?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Johnston. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. Do we have any people from?
Yes, sir. We have
We do?
members of the public.
Any person may address the board at this time upon any subject not identified on this agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Rainbow Municipal Water District. However, any matter that requires action will be referred to staff for a report and action at a subsequent board meeting. As to matters on the agenda, if a request to make a public comment is received, an opportunity will be given to address the board when the matter is considered.
If I may, for those who have joined us remotely, if you'd like to provide comment via Zoom, please use the webinar controls to raise your hand. And when called upon, you'll receive 3 minutes to speak. If you're dialing in by phone, please dial *6 to unmute yourself after being notified it's your time to speak, and *9 to alert us that you would like to speak. Thank you.
And we have no requests for speaking.
I have none.
Okay. Employee recognitions.
Yes, favorite part of the meeting. This month, we're recognizing our safety and risk officer, Luke Johnson. And Luke recently completed a professional development program through Aqua JPIA. So right up his alley. It was actually focused on supervisory skills. And it was actually really neat. He actually came and I think he had to sit with several of the managers as well as myself. And you could just kind of learn, hey, what's the scope of responsibility and those kind of things, but a pretty robust program to, again, sharpen people who want to be leaders in the organization. Luke already is a leader in this organization just by his actions and what he does for us, but obviously has a lot of aspirations. And so very, very pleased to present this to Luke.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Steve Flynn. Committee meeting summaries.
Yeah, Flint won't be here today.
Yeah.
He will.
Yeah, he lets
He's
us know
on
he wouldn't.
vacation.
So we'll cover his
Budget and finance.
budget and finance. Yes, we had a budget and finance meeting last week. A couple of items on there. The main topic of discussion was actually on your agenda today, item 12C, which discusses the changes to the reserves policy. Pretty robust discussion at committee regarding this. Most of the discussion really centered around there were some questions on like flexibility. And so we talked a lot about the, how the policy provides the board and also the general manager and CFO some real flexibility year to year on how we make progress towards meeting our targets, both our minimum targets and primary targets, I guess, the things we're kind of shooting for. There were some questions about updates, how often we do updates. And so the policy does address that we at least annually during the budget season. So obviously that provides that opportunity to, hey, how do we want to address this year? And then how do we want to address it going forward? But also potentially more than annually if necessary, right? If we feel it's necessary or a board member feels it's necessary. So we talked about potentially mid-year budget time as another time where we could start, address those things. So I think we covered that. And then some discussion about how it compares to other districts. And I think we're similar, but I think with some improvements. And the improvements really centered on where we're not having any kind of shock differences year to year in kind of what we're targeting. And that's kind of by pacing it along with our, CIP depreciation rather than, 1 year of a 5-year CIP that might vary a lot from, because of one big project or something like that. So that was kind of the meat of the discussion. At the end of that discussion, the committee unanimously recommended that the board approve item 12C as provided. And that was about it. There was a nice exchange of words on also on just the process this year, the budget process. I think the committee, they did obviously staff. We gave our appreciation to them for really participating in some very long meetings. I think we averaged about 3 hours 3 times. So a pretty good time commitment on their behalf. And so just expressed our appreciation and really, I think the entire committee expressed back their appreciation for, just listening to them, their input and actually putting that input into work in the budget. Some of those items that I think our committee members brought up specifically really made their way into our budget and some of the changes that we made. And so they were very appreciative of that. So that was about the gist of the meeting.
Engineering and operations.
That committee did not meet.
Right. It was canceled for this month.
Communication and customer services.
Amanda's gonna do it today.
Ah, good.
Hello, members of the board and management. My name is Amanda Weber. I'm the communications and PR analyst for the district. Here to give you an update on our latest communications and customer service committee meeting. We met last week on Tuesday, June 16th, and welcomed a new committee member, James Kosak, who was appointed to serve on the committee last month. We went into the crop swap program, gave an overview of our statistics. You'll hear more about in today's meeting. The program debuted with a very strong response from our ratepayers, and they continue to respond to the campaign, which originally began last June with a series of newsletter articles, direct mail, letters, and website updates. In community events, members of our Rainbow Water team participated in the inaugural Rainbow Run at Vallecito Elementary School, where we served as an event sponsor and supplied water bottles for the water station. For community newsletter, we reviewed the June newsletter. Was a very robust issue with planning for the future and rate increases, where we gave details on our proposed increase, detachment, and financial planning, as well as the rising cost of water. For 2023 water quality report, we debuted a new digital and print version in English and Spanish, and gave an overview on, we concluded with 5 more tips on how to save water, plant with native planting, and then a link to Metropolitan website on WaterSmart. In public communications, we reviewed 3 news articles on financial planning, capital projects, sewer capacity fees that were published in Village News, and reviewed once again the consumer confidence report. And we touched on the 2024 North County Water Agency poster contest. And the committee voted to recognize students who had received top vote at the next July meeting, where we will reward them with a small award and a promotional art kit. And our final item was the legislative affairs adoption of policy to support legislative affairs. So this will give us a chance to engage in conversation about future legislative effort and also support comment letters. Our next meeting will be scheduled for Tuesday, July 16th.
Thank you, Amanda. Any questions? Consent calendar. We have approval of the May 28th, the regular board meeting minutes, and approval of notice of completion and acceptance of minor facilities constructed by customers. And do I have a motion to receive and file, I guess?
Also move.
Second.
Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Johnson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Presentation on the crop swap program.
Yeah, so just want to give the full board an update on where we're at. The data you'll see today is from actually from early June. So we're expecting another update here pretty shortly, but really, I think Amanda had mentioned very robust demand from our customers thus far, which is really promising. So if you want to move, the program launched on April 29th, right at the end of April. The window for applications opened up. There's a dedicated website, regionalcropswap.com, where any of our eligible accounts can go in and fill out an application for a project they want to pursue. And through, like I said, through early June, we had 35 different separate project applications through that website. That's just Rainbow customers. So basically averaging one a day. I don't know if it probably won't continue that hot, but really, really nice demand to kick off the program. And of those 35 projects, we had 12 projects approved. And so that approval process really is an initial screening. Basically, you go through the application. Yes, this looks like you are a agricultural, you have an agricultural account. It's an eligible project. It's something that the project or the program funds. But then they also there's a site inspection that has to occur. So site inspector goes out, actually surveys the property and determines, yes, this project is eligible. At that point, you have kind of your preliminary approval. And at that point, the funds get reserved. So 12 of those projects have already gone through that project approval process. So they've had a site inspection. So the project's basically a go. Now it's just up to the customer to complete it. And those 12 projects total $236,000 in reserved grant funding. So $236,000, it's going to go to our agricultural customers over 12 projects. And I'll go through kind of what those the different types of projects that are being funded. But again, a really nice response in this first month or so, and we're going to continue the push. Newsletters and anywhere we can get the word out. And really, it's not just us. All 6 agencies are out speaking at various groups. We had a presentation at the AGC, the Avocado Growers Commission, a few weeks ago. Actually by our site inspector, the guy that's doing site inspections, gave a overview. So there's a lot of word still kind of getting out, and obviously Rainbow, we're going to continue the push. I think the marketing campaigns that we have done, part of it, I think, because it started so early, started with the interest list last year. We continued to promote it in our newsletters. I think that's really kind of got us out of the gate really strong. I think there was, a lot of people that knew about it in our service area. So that's a good thing. We actually, some of our partner agencies actually came to us. What are you doing? What are you doing that you're getting this kind of response? Obviously, it doesn't hurt that we have a couple thousand agricultural accounts also, but obviously we've shared some of the things, our postcard that we put out to all the customers and things like that, which not a great deal of cost, but really helps get the word out. So So that's been really good. Just a kind of a rundown of where the interest came from. We had 15 of the project applications came off of the original interest list, which I think there was 50 or 60, somewhere around there on that initial interest list. So before the program even opened. And then an additional 20 have come through the other means of communication, of whether it was the newsletter articles or the direct mail postcard. Like I said, we've got 12 projects that are approved, 11 more that are in the pre-inspection, so the applications that are being reviewed and the site inspection that's going to take place, and then 11 other submissions. Again, this is a couple weeks old, so we're expecting those things have probably progressed even further, and we'll get some new numbers for sure by the next board meeting, and we'll share those with you. Just as far as the type of projects that are being approved or submitted on, 12. So the majority or the leader, I guess, in project types is just avocado rootstock. So that's swapping out old trees for new drought tolerant, disease tolerant rootstock.
Are these numbers for our applicants only or for the whole?
This is just rainbow. This is just rainbow. So yeah, 12 avocado rootstock, 7 crop conversion. So that's converting some higher water use crop to a lower water use crop. 4 avocado rejuvenation. So that's stumping, basically stumping, and they get, you get water savings and some, revitalization of the grove. And then the rest are really more like BMP stuff, soil moisture sensors and scheduling and mulching. And those are usually kind of the lower dollar grant funding, but it's all part of it, right? So if somebody wants to put soil moisture sensors to improve their irrigation, then the program will cover at least a piece of that. So again, we're pretty excited about this for 2 reasons. One being just, success of the program. We wanted to be successful. We've already kind of started talking with some of our partners about potentially chasing additional funding. So once the first 5 million runs out, we want to re-up those funds. And then, but also I think that the thing that's so promising is our customers reinvesting in agriculture. And that, so that's really promising for kind of long-term stability of agriculture in the region, which is really what we were looking for with the program. So good stuff.
Question. So for avocado, what are you finding in the crop conversion? What crops are they converting to?
I'm not sure what the conversion is. Typically, it's either from avocado to citrus, avocado to wine grapes, or citrus to wine grapes. Those are the most common. To be honest, I don't know what those 7 the specific stats are. Next time we get an update, I'll make sure we'll get a little more detail on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Jake, was Rainbow allocated a certain amount? And then there's a ceiling on it or cap on it, or is it the 5 million collectively with the agency?
So yes and no. So the way we worked it was Rancho is reserving 2 million. They were the original. They got the original grant, so they get a couple $1 million. The balance is for the other 5 agencies, and the way we structured it was out of the gate, everybody has like a reserve amount of 200,000. So, and really the intent there was, everybody contributed to get the program running. So we want to make sure everybody could benefit, even if they don't come out of the gate very strong, right? So they all got reserved that 200,000. Beyond that 1.2 million, then the other 1.5 or 1.7 is first come, first serve. So if Rancho expends theirs or you can see we're already over our 200,000. So we're in that first come, first serve amount.
Yeah.
But at that point, you've got $1 million or so that you can run through beyond just the 200,000.
Do you know with the number of pending applications that it says there's 23, what that value might be?
I don't know the value of those yet. I'll have that at the next update.
Okay.
Yeah. But if it kind of follows this logic, I mean, most of the like the root stock, there's a cap on annually. We put a cap on how much we would do per project, again, to try to make sure, one project didn't take the balance of the funding. So there's a $50,000 cap, and a lot of those actually are there or close to that cap. So it could be pretty significant.
Wow.
Yeah, because they're doing an acre or so, or 5 acres. And I think you can get like 9,000 acre to do the rootstock. So basically you can do about 5 or 6 acres in one project. And we have several of those. So.
Okay.
But when we get the update, I'll shoot it out to the board, and then we'll talk about it at the next board meeting too.
Within our district, are you seeing more activity in certain divisions, or is it consistently throughout?
We haven't done a map of the divisions. So
Yeah,
we'll-
That would be interesting.
Oh, Amanda, okay.
I would like to see that.
Director Johnson, I can speak to that. We're pretty spread out across our entire area.
Hmm.
But what's interesting is some of these submissions are multiple submissions by one landowner. So a customer is submitting for a particular project and then coming back and resubmitting 2 or 3 more times. They're taking full advantage of this
Mhm.
opportunity that we presented to them.
Okay, thank you. Great.
So that's all I had on this, but more to come. Rick?
Any questions or discussion on the crop shop program? Besides Carrie's questions to get additional information, which is good.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we might be interested. You look
Oh.
at it.
There you go.
Better hurry.
Yeah, I know.
Public hearing, 11A, discussion and possible action to adopt ordinance for ID1 standby charges. I'm supposed to read all of this, Therese?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is a public hearing for the Improvement District 1 water standby charges and discussion and possible action to adopt an ordinance establishing readiness to serve water service standby assessments or availability charges for all of the Rainbow Municipal Water District Improvement District number 1 is now open. All persons attending the meeting on site and remotely may indicate their wish to speak now. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes in length. Please speak slowly and clearly in order for us to reflect your comments correctly in the meeting minutes. This is the time for presentation of testimony. No debate is allowed. Therese, are there any written materials or comments that have been submitted to anyone that wishes to submit without speaking?
No, I've received none.
At this time, the floor is open for comments from the public.
I'm seeing none.
I'm going. Any board member may speak, may ask any questions of any speaker or staff. Does anyone in the audience or the board have any questions?
Yes,
Of course.
of course, sorry. I just wondered if we could get a little bit more information about why this improvement district was established different from the rest of the district. I wasn't understanding that context.
Yeah, and this actually covers the entire district. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
called Improvement District number 1. It actually encompasses the entire district. And really, this was established in 95, and the intent is to cover Metropolitan's readiness to serve charge that's imposed on the district. It is a fixed rate. It's $10.54 an acre or partial acre. Or if you have less than an acre, it's still $10.54. But if you have more than that, then it's calculated based on $10.54 an acre. That's remained unchanged the entire its entire history, which dates back to, yeah, like the 1995. And so annually, though, the board has to basically adopt a resolution establishing those charges. But the only way to, and they're really not available for adjustment without a public vote. So that's, you know, it would, if we wanted to adjust those upwards. Although the readiness surcharge, because of the drop in demand, I think it still kind of coincides pretty well with actually the funds that are collected. So, you know, the region as a whole or metropolitan service area as a whole, the demands have come down. So kind of makes everybody's proportion the same, but ours have come down even more than the average. And so I think, yeah, because of that, our portion kind of stays in that same range. So so not a big need for adjustment where, you know, where we're losing a ton of money and we have to go out for a public vote. But that's kind of the history behind it. And yeah, each year we do this public hearing and resolution to adopt this.
And one of the interests originally was to have those that benefit from water in the region but aren't direct customers paying into the program as well. That's what this helps cover.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or discussion? There being no further testimony, I'll close the public testimony portion of the hearing. Is there any further discussion by board members? Is there any further recommendations or comments from staff?
None from staff.
It is now in order for the board to discuss this matter and for a board member to make a motion to take action.
I so move then.
I'll second.
Moved by Director Johnson, seconded by Director Dale. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Johnson,
Aye.
Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Townsend Smith,
Aye.
Director Dale.
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
motion carries 5-0.
This concludes the hearing for this matter. Discussion on possible action to adopt a resolution establishing water and sewer capacity fees. The public hearing to consider adoption of a resolution establishing water and sewer capacity fees is now open. All persons attending the meeting on site and remotely may indicate their wish to speak now. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes in length. Please speak slowly and clearly in order for us to reflect your comments correctly in the meeting minutes. This is the time for presentation of testimony. No debate is allowed. Board Secretary Therese, are there any written materials or comments that have been submitted or that anyone wishes to submit without speaking?
I've received none.
At this time, the floor is open for comments from the public. Having none, does the staff wish to respond to any subjects raised by any of our non-speakers or to make any additional statements?
Yeah, so I'll provide a few points on this one. So this item adopts a resolution that increases our capacity fees to account for the amount of inflation since the last time. We had changed the fees, which was when they were adopted, which was in 2017. And so that amount comes out to 26.4% between then and now. Happens to be a period of historic inflation. So that's why it's a larger than average increase. When we're talking about capacity fees, these are the one-time development charges, usually for new housing developments, if there's a physical new connection to our system. So nothing that's on a normal monthly bill for a customer. But the revenue stream does impact our normal rates because to what degree we get in capacity fee revenue, that pays for things like renewing and replacing our infrastructure, which our existing customers would otherwise have to pay. So it helps lower our normal rates, or at least not have to increase them as much. And so this item adjusts for the inflation since 2017. It also adds in a new provision in the resolution to essentially automatically annually do this without bringing up a separate item. Essentially until the next time we do a fee study, and we would do a fee study the next time we do a master plan update. So we have a good idea of what projects specifically we need for the future. And as you know, in our CIP, we were looking at the master plan update in the next few years. So this would come on the tails of that. We did get a chance to meet with representatives from the Building Industry Association and give our own private presentation to them on June 12th, covering both this proposed increase and what they were most interested in was the decrease that'll come with detachment, leading to what's average of a 19% decrease even after this increase once we detach. And so you see a table and the board report on all the fees and what their adjustments will be after detachment. As with the rest of the finance items, this was part of the discussions the last few months. It's part of the comprehensive financial plan. I think we presented it in April originally that capacity fees would have to increase as part of the overall plan to be able to afford everything that we talked about. So with that, the recommendation is to adopt the resolution that adopts the new fees.
I have a question. Just curiosity. The engineering news record, is that established federally or state?
Neither. It's actually a private research group and publication.
Okay.
But it's one that specifically tracks things that water districts routinely use this index for this purpose.
Yeah, and it tracks indexes locally and nationwide.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
because I had not heard of that.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the board?
I had a couple too. In the table, it says new capacity fee post attachment with a January 1st, 2025 date. I assume that implies that if it happens before detachment happens before, then that will be in effect. Okay.
Correct.
And then I wondered too, if, with the deferral of the master plans, I think, weren't we waiting on the master plans to be done to update this again? Is there a need to do them now?
The master plan, you mean?
No, the fee updates, like do a whole new capacity fee study. Have the master plans go and then do it again. I know it's being updated by.
Yeah. And we did push it out 6 months or so to defer some of that budget out of this.
Cause it'll be what, 2 years? 3
Yeah, it's a
years until
good,
master plans are done.
probably in 18 months. So we're looking at 2 years, 2 years from now for sure.
But
Just
just
throwing
to
it out.
And these are
Yeah,
private-
so just to clarify, we wouldn't do a fee study until the master plan was done and we had a clearer picture of what the projects would be. So it just would do inflationary increases until then without a new study.
That was
Okay.
that was the plan. So, yeah. But I think as soon as we're confident in kind of what the findings of the master plan, kick that off.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Glad you're catching up. on
Yeah.
CPI.
Yeah. I'll
And these are 7 years old, so I don't know if I want to wait any longer.
Yeah, one other thing, and just, we have, we're in contact with a lot of the developers that are looking at things right now or things that are coming in the near future. And so we communicated with all of them to just really kind of it's a little bit of a unique situation just because of the detachment and what that does to those rates. So all the developers are pretty aware, or the developers that we know about are all aware of kind of the process that's going on.
That was another question I had was, do you expect that once the detachment happens, you'll have a flurry of developers paying for their capacity?
I don't think so. It seems that, especially the larger developments or the developments of real impact, they have larger fish to, larger hurdles, I think, than even just trying to time the capacity fees. Bonsall Oaks, they're moving pretty well and have a project, but even them, I think they probably wouldn't be ready until well after the detachment occurs anyways. So it doesn't seem like there's anybody falling into this kind of middle time frame
Right.
either way. But so we may see some more, after, but it's really, just the timing of the thing more so than anything related to what we're doing.
So we were corresponding a little bit, Jake and I, about this particular item. And what I found interesting was that the water authority charges a capacity fee, but Eastern don't. I didn't know that. And I just wonder, goodness, there's a lot of inequities with the San Diego customers, and I'm just very thankful for the detachment, because this is saving, future customers on the price of the development and homes.
Yeah. Yeah, as we're aware, they're the only ones that we know of that charge that.
I'm just wondering what that's paying for then, when that's being paid to the water authority, what is that paid for?
I'm sure it's,
Not
I'm
expecting an answer, but
sure it's addressed in their cost of service.
Two people in their marketing department.
It was actually something that came up during the Met budget this year too. I guess we're kind of going off track here, but something that San Diego brought up that, hey, you could impose this charge and help your budget, but they didn't go
Wow.
for that.
Interesting.
Well, if you're looking for a move approval, I
Yeah.
move approval.
Are there any further questions or testimony? If not, I'll close the public testimony portion of the hearing. Is there any further discussion by the board members? Is there any further recommendations or comments from staff?
None.
It is now in order for the board to discuss this matter and for a board member to make a motion to take action.
I'll move approval.
Second, yeah.
Moved by Director Dale, second by Townsend Smith. All the roll call vote, please.
Director Johnson,
Aye.
Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Townsend Smith,
Aye.
Director Dale,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. This concludes the public hearing for this matter.
All right. Thank you.
Items number 12, action item to consider the adoption of a resolution implementing annual increase in water and wastewater service charges for fiscal year 2025. And an ordinance amending ordinance 23-04, revising provisions relating to pass-through rates and capacity fees.
So just to kind of lead us off, this, we've got a series of items here that really are all related to the budget workshops and our fiscal year budget that we've been going through the last few months. And, obviously this is my first time going through with Rainbow this process and a very unique year to do so, given the wholesale water change and the various things that are going on. But I think first off, and I don't want to belabor all the love, but from staff, just everybody's involvement in putting this together, and really, to be honest, it makes my job easy when you have staff that is 100% focused on the best interest of the district. And that's how these budgets, when they originally came to Rick and I, that's what showed up, department by department. And so first off, just starting from that point, that really a unique thing to see, and a lot of praise for staff and their work on this. And then on top of that, again, kind of, the conversation that we had at the Budget and Finance Committee, when we decided to go through this workshop process, which the management team kind of discussed, and how do we want to do this year, given the uniqueness of what we're kind of up against and the things that we've got in front of us. It was just exactly what we were hoping for, to be quite honest. The hope was we would be able to engage the five of you for sure and get some really good feedback, but also the committees, really have the committees felt heard and really, their input into this budget. And we felt we got all of that through those three workshops and then the subsequent board meetings. And and really tried to, address the input that we were getting. And I know, we're not always going to agree on everything. Even at staff level, we don't always agree on everything. And there's a lot of things we want to accomplish. And I think Director Dale, we can't accomplish everything in this year. It's fair. It's very fair. But I think we have a lot of really good stuff in here, and then some good stuff we're going to do in the future that we've deferred, but we tried really hard to kind of meet all the board's wishes and really give staff what they need as well to accomplish. We look at our accomplishments a year from now. We want to, we definitely want to see some pretty significant stuff, and so. Again, not to be sappy, but it's really appreciated the board's engagement on this and the time spent and also the committees. But I feel like we've, from here, we've really got the future looks bright, I think, for this district. And a big portion of that is, hey, we're going to save some money on wholesale water, and that allows for some flexibility in the things that we do. And so that was a long-term effort that predated me and others. But I think you're really going to start to see the benefits of that. And this first year is a little challenging because of the cost, but I think we're doing all the right things to really try to pay it back to our customers who supported us as well, and really move the district forward. So anyways, just my appreciation for both staff and for this board for, the process that happened over the last few months. It's been, really, really good. Really, really good. So.
I think we appreciate you also.
Yes.
And Rick and
Yours
everybody.
and his team.
And his team. Yeah. So with that, I'm gonna leave it to Rick for the actual first item, and sorry, we went a little long.
Thanks, Jake. So, as you all saw in the board write-up, this is the primary item of all the finance items. And so I'll probably speak more on this one than the other ones unless there's questions. But along those lines, this has been covered in depth. So I think it's 5 public meetings between the joint committee meetings and then the regular meetings where we covered some follow-up things. Ultimately, what is being proposed here is a resolution that implements part of the approved rate increases from last year. So last year, as part of the public process, the 218 process, noticing customers, the cost of service study, we thought we needed 9% per year for water for the next 5 years, although that didn't include the impacts from detachment, and a few different rate increases for wastewater. I think it was 35% and then 13% for the remaining 4 years. And so what we're asking for here is not 9%, but 4.5%. And that's the primary thing. So under what was adopted last year, and the full amount for the wastewater, because that doesn't benefit from detachment in the same way. And so a lot of discussions to get here, but the sort of some key highlights were there was a lot of things leading to the pressures of 9% per year to begin with. One, this board did not put through a number of years of increases anticipating detachment, trying to benefit customers that way. But what that led to this point, as we finally have detachment on the horizon, is, if you think of it this way, since 2019, we've had about 24% inflation, just normal inflation here in the region, and we've increased water rates about 14%. And so you have sort of this inflation deficit. We're playing catch up on just the normal cost of things. Historically low water sales, around 10,000 acre feet. And overall using a lot of reserves to be able to balance getting here, and then the plan moving forward. So now we have the benefit of detachment, at least in the projections for this year. And so the savings that come with that, but those all come with, at least in the short term, especially offsets to those savings. We've got the 3.2 million per year exit fee payment for 5 years. We have 15 million in infrastructure we need to spend to be able to appropriately move water from the northern connections to make sure we can still serve all the customers. And then, as we've been talking about in the budget, huge increases on energy, 30% over the last couple of years, another 10%. And then we'll have to do, because we're having to do things a little bit differently operationally, you've got increases in chemical costs and other sorts of things that we've all covered. So you don't get the full benefit of the savings right away, which is why we're still asking for the 4.5%. And with that, still deficit spending in the first year, So even with this increase, looking at, I think it was 2.9 million in reserve spending for the first year, but by the end, that's why it's a 5-year plan. By the end of the 5 years, that we get up to these targets, we'll talk about it another item, and be able to fully cover the cost of service. So with that, unless there's any questions, there's 2 specific actions that go into this item. One is a resolution that implements the 4.5% and the 13%. And the other one is an ordinance that clarifies the ordinance from last year, specifically because we had in that ordinance, our pass-through provision was specific to the water authority. And obviously looking forward, it's not just with the anticipating Eastern. So it just clarifies that language. And because we approved capacity fees separately, took out the language in there for capacity fees, since we'll have that in a different document now. So I'll stop with that and open up to questions.
Question for you. Is it possible when we put in the bills about the rate increases? I really like what you just said and how you said it. Could you write something exactly like that? And no, because it was very good, bringing of the 24% of inflation, we've only made 14, and we've tried to knowing that we're gonna hopefully detachment, we didn't raise rate. I just think that would be very informative to the ratepayers, like, oh, okay, it makes sense. You know,
Doesn't hurt to refresh their memory, because even though we stated that in the past, it's easily forgotten.
I'd like you to write that. He did very good.
Well, I'm stealing a lot of material we wrote in the newsletter, so that much. But I think in the communication items to come, you'll see these talking points reinforced. And we are looking at it. I can't guarantee we'll be able to do it. But going to Director Hamilton's point at a previous meeting, at least some sort of text in the bill message that, you know, for instance, like one key point. So we're anticipating a 3.6% pass-through increase January now being with Eastern. And we had thought it would otherwise be 10%, at least the way it's currently being projected. So that should be relatively easy enough to calculate what 3.6 versus 10% is and say, you've saved this much, you know, from just on your pass-through rate. So at least simple things like that on an individualized basis that don't change up the whole look and feel of the bill, which might be logistically too much, at least in a short time.
Your detachment savings.
Yes. So something that reinforces this point on a personal basis. So we're looking into that, and we'll keep the board informed if we can.
And this rate increase is actually for 18 months and not 12.
Yes.
Question, maybe Jake, I'd like to know, because it seems like our detachment date has always moved a little bit further out. What is the current best estimate when we're gonna be?
Yeah, and that it hasn't changed too much lately. For budgeting purposes, we said January 1. And we could be there. I mean, if you know, construction's actually anticipated to be complete right around mid-October right now, and they're on schedule. But there's still some hurdles there, and it's a construction project, and we have to commission once they're actually there and ready to go. So and I had a conversation with LAFCO with their executive officer just a couple days ago, and he was curious too. And so we've got them prepared for November 1st. Be ready by November 1st, and somewhere in there, that's the anticipation.
Are we gonna have a ceremony? I mean, like ribbon cutting, you know, like where you turn off a valve or something?
That's
I
Give the
I was
finger
to
to
do
the
a
water
check
authority.
to the water authority, just like the Fallbrook did. which was this 10-foot big heck.
Eastern, Eastern's actually, they had an event up at Fallbrook. Basically it was that they had a fake, you know,
Yeah.
thing, valve that everybody put their hand on, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Oh,
Our thought was we may do it out at one of the pump station sites, but
Oh,
yes,
good.
we will do something, and so to commemorate all that. There are a few things. Yeah, well, we'll see as we get closer. There are some deadlines and things that I hope to hit. There's one on the tax roll, you know, to be able to switch the tax roll funding. That's like a December 1st deadline. Fallbrook didn't hit that, so they're having to kind of wait a whole nother year to to do, so they're doing those things now. So LAFCO is actually getting a little bit of experience with Fallbrook right now on that. So hopefully they can process ours a little quicker if we can make it by then. So anyways, we're doing everything we can to push it ahead of January 1st, but again, for budgeting purposes, that was what we figured was a safe assumption.
When we do this, like, are we gonna contact like Village News? I mean, I'd really like, I know Tom in this process, he was being interviewed by several I'd love to have them do a little thing. And even for us, I would think that'd be kind of cool if we could have a video and we could put on our website of this there. I mean, I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I know KPBS covered a lot, and I'm sure they would be interested, and some others for sure locally. I mean, we have a lot of,
Particularly with the way.
yeah, I think we're going to hear a lot of water rate stories over the next few months that, yeah, we're going to put a spotlight on some of that.
Any further discussion?
I just wanted to thank the staff and especially both of you for your hard work on all of the budget documents and the CIP and really listening to the board and the committees. I appreciate that. It was very helpful in terms of getting me up to speed, especially the financials look a little different than, what I'm used to. And though I'm, had a lot of years of this, it still takes a little while to kind of get through it. And it was very helpful. I don't know if that's something you're planning to do annually, but I liked it. I liked the process.
Yeah.
We were able to really take a deep dive with a lot of topics that I think needed it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Appreciate that.
Likewise.
Procedurally, there's a roll call vote and a oral vote. Because the ordinance requires a
Roll call.
vote. Or can we load them both into the roll call vote?
For this, it's probably best to separate them, do the resolution and then approve the ordinance.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So move.
Moved by Director Johnson, seconded by Director Hamilton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do I have a motion for the amending of ordinance 2304?
Also move.
Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Hamilton. A roll call vote, please.
Director Johnson,
Aye.
Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Townsend Smith,
Aye.
Director Dale,
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
motion carries 5-0.
12B, consider adoption of a resolution approving the fiscal year 2024-2025 operating capital improvements budget.
Yes. So this one is the last item was to approve the rates, which are assumed in this budget. And so this item is for the resolution to approve the budget itself, which is, we've been talking a 5-year plan. It's the first year of the 5-year plan, but it gives us the spending blueprint for how to move forward. And it incorporates all of the discussions that we've had the last few months, including over 900,000 in budget cuts that we handled in discussion in the end of May. You will see at least a few details in the write-up to try and summarize the key points in the budget. One of those being the staffing difference of a net of 2 FTE between freezing the engineer project manager position and then the new position necessary for maintenance for the pumps and motors, and then the sort of general position that we're trying to accomplish a lot with, both janitorial, warehouse, and other, and the other savings associated with that. And so I'll open it up to questions since we've covered this in detail at previous meetings.
Question for you. When we were in that last conference at Aqua, there was several questions about the mandate 2025 of the energy efficient trucks and stuff. Are we gonna have the money for that, or are we gonna be able to push that down the road? Do we know?
Both. Yeah, that's actually something we've been working on the last couple of months, pretty heavy. And Robert, who couldn't make it here today, he's out at Thoroughbred doing startup things, which is good use of his time. But Robert's been really spearheading that effort. We do have some time to basically implement that. The CARB rule, the ACF rule covers medium and heavy duty replacements. And we don't have any of those scheduled over the next couple of years. So we have a little bit of time to ease into that implementation. So really the main step we're taking now is we're working with SDG&E on grant funding to bring the charging stations on site. And what we're, really the plan is to try to make it expandable. So start with a few charging stations and then, be able to expand that over time. And so but even SDG&E has admitted it's a couple year process. So it kind of lines up pretty well with when we're going to need the vehicles and when we anticipate that we would have the charging infrastructure in place. And so that's our main push at the moment, is really to get the infrastructure in place. You'll probably see more on that, but there is grant funding available. There's funding programs. And so, but we kind of got to jump on it before it's kind of like prop swap before it goes away. So that's the main focus right now.
Is there any funding for the vehicle itself?
I've heard of some funding. We've looked at a couple of programs. They didn't fit us very well. I mean, they were targeting large fleets or like large public infrastructure projects and things like that. So we haven't seen anything that really fits where, water district would have a shot at, 5 or 10 trucks or whatever it is. Haven't seen one of those yet, but
Because I know this goes back to the conference, and this was on some legislation that was going on. And if you could look into it, the definition of rural, and that's where no one really could give me a definition of rural. I consider us rural, but in rural areas, there was quite a bit of money set for rural areas. And I don't know if rural means rural, or does it mean how many's on staff? How big's your agency? I mean,
Generally speaking, I think you're referring to some exemptions in the rural counties less than 10,000. And so those are all Northern California. Yeah.
okay.
And really it only pushes back some
And you-
requirements a few years. Yeah. And so, our greatest chance of real funding is this SDG&E funding, because what it would do is pay for essentially all of the infrastructure from their lines all the way up into the pedestal where you put the charger. So we'd cover the charger. So pretty significant amount of funding. And then and also just to clarify, so this specific rule, there are other rules about other fleet things, but this specific rule really only impacts when we need to replace a vehicle with something that's 8,500 pounds or larger.
Right.
So there's a good amount of our fleet which doesn't get covered under this. It's the bigger, heavier vehicles that we would need to be replacing.
And are there vehicles available in that class?
Largely, no, not currently.
right.
And so then you have to go through a separate exemption process that they don't like to try and do that. So it'll be burdensome.
What about the mandate? I know it's affecting the landscape industry, but if we have like blowers, I mean, that's all supposed to be going to electric too. Is that gonna affect us? Is that municipalities, or that just for the landscapers, stuff like that? Cause I know they're really pushing that right now. Is that gonna affect us?
Pushing everything.
Yeah, we did talk about generators, but I don't think generators are covered right now. They're still selling regular fuel models. So I don't think, nothing that comes to mind.
Cause I would have thought you guys gotta have like blowers on your trucks and stuff, and that's gonna have.
We do. I mean, we have portable pumps and things like that. So if they start, well, I guess those are, I guess they wouldn't be electric.
We
yeah.
did have a limb that we needed trimming the other day, and we have the Ryobi brand and what's the Home Depot's line? There's Rigid, Milwaukee. And so we have already started.
Oh,
We
good.
already have the batteries and the chargers. You can buy the tool only for a lot less. You don't need another battery.
Yeah.
And so we have already started doing that.
Yeah. That's just kind of out of our own. It's pretty convenient.
We don't have to maintain the gas and
Right.
the
Yeah.
part.
Right,
It's a
yeah,
lot
exactly,
easier.
right.
And again, with that tool only, the price is way, way down.
So that's not a really a budgetary item that we really got concerned about.
I don't think so. I mean, you know, you start moving into tractors and things like that, then obviously you're gonna get dump trucks. I mean, that's really where the big hits are gonna come. If we ever get there.
I was just gonna mention, I know we're a little off topic with this, but Helix had their entire fleet and charging infrastructure paid for through a lot of different grants, and the person that did all that work is Joe Garuba, and he did a presentation last December at the Water Reuse San Diego chapter. So there were a lot of different resources that I wasn't even aware of, but he's a really good resource. I think though, there's economies of scale, you know, with a really large fleet compared to maybe our size might be different.
Yeah. But we're turning over the rocks to see where.
Yeah.
But that is the focus. The SDG&E and the infrastructure is the focus.
Can't charge them, then it makes sense to have one.
They're just monuments outside at that point.
Any further discussion?
I have just a request that in the future, when funding is available, that we look back at the grant specialist position. Because there will be grants in the future, and I know right now that is not the possibility, but just to keep that in our focus.
They're worth their money if they're good.
Yeah, if they're good.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
Motion.
Go for it. Second.
Moved by Director Dale, seconded by Director Johnson. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Item number C, consider adoption of an ordinance revising Administrative Code Chapter 5.03, Section 220, Cash Reserves Policy.
Yes. Can you put on the presentation? So this item follows suit with the detailed discussion last week at the Finance Committee, and then largely the whole idea that's being implemented here was presented, I believe that was the April joint meeting with the board. So the what you didn't have at the April meeting was the actual change to the policy that does all the things that we talked about, which is what you have in red line in this item to implement it. But I did at least once, and so it's been a couple of months for some of the board members who just saw this at April, to highlight a couple of the key changes that go in with the reserves policy. This is probably the other cornerstone that goes with a lot of the financial actions that we talked about as part of the comprehensive financial plan. And so should skip to this one. So with this policy, we kind of change directions from specific amounts per fund to an overall goal or target, and actually a range of a target from minimum to maximum, and what we call the target level being that specific point trying to gear towards as far as everything. So you look at all the district resources for cash and go, well, where are we compared to these minimum and maximum targets? And if we're below those, specifically below the minimum, then this policy actually has some recommended actions, not official actions that are forced upon the district, but recommended actions to get us there within certain timeframes. So this is probably the better slide. And so what it does call for, and Jake already mentioned part of this, is that at least once a year, every year, usually during the budget season when it makes the most sense, for an overall review of where are we with reserves. It's also time to look at the policy if it needs to be changed, and if we're under, an action plan for how to get towards these targets in the timeframes policy calls for. And so what you really have is the base level target or the minimum target representing the amount of money we need, we call it liquidity, to just run the district. That's paying for bills, cash flow differences. For instance, we pay for a lot of water in the summer to the Water Authority or Eastern or whoever the wholesaler is, because we're buying a lot of water, but there's usually a delay when we get money back from the customers. And so you're fronting millions of dollars, or just timing variances on when we're paying for capital projects versus when we get in funds. And so to have enough just for cash flow purposes, that's the minimum target. Obviously, if we're below that, then there are these recommended actions, usually relating to things like budgeting very conservatively. At this level, we might think about raising debt if it's prudent financially, which we did this year, essentially for that reason. And you'd probably want to strongly consider raising rates at that point, at some level, putting into that. The sort of goal that we're shooting towards is what we call the target level. That's the one in yellow. And that covers an additional amount on hand that really funds our ability to handle things that we anticipate, but we don't necessarily budget for every year. So for instance, if our water sales come in as lower than projected, or we have more mainline breaks than we think, or chemicals are more expensive than we thought, or a project comes in much higher than we thought it was going to be, these reserves stabilize our rates because it can cover those expenses, at least to give us enough time to do a smoother rate transition. And so these are normal sorts of things to happen to us that we don't always budget for. And so, but it covers those types of expenses. And it has a longer goal time frame. Usually you'd want to be there within 10 years. Usually 5 would be the ideal goal, which is where we're shooting for in our 5-year plan. And then lastly, the overall maximum target, including additional things like some amount on hand for emergencies. Like we had talked about at the April board meeting, things like all of our underground infrastructure, all of those water pipelines are not insurable. So if you do have major damage, we're going to be spending a lot of cash very quickly and trying to ask FEMA for some help and others depending on the level of emergency. And even if you do get assistance, it's usually years before you ever actually see the funds. So it's ideal if we had savings to hold on to them for a maximum target, but it's not something you would necessarily raise rates to get to unless we saw a specific need. So we covered all of the specific funds, and I'll just sort of refresh with this last slide. And so what you have on the left is where our current policy says we need to be for reserves, which is about 8.5 million. The big difference being that there was no specific target to fund capital infrastructure and replacement. So this is really just operating needs. And obviously infrastructure is the largest part of our business. We have, according to our last estimate, roughly $1 billion worth of infrastructure if it broke today that we would need to spend to replace. And so what the new policy does is it addresses that as well, which is where you see in some of those categories. And so where we would be as a target now is not 8.5, but about 31 million for next year's budget, which is very similar to what the consultant had recommended as part of the cost of service study. I think they were at about 33 million, so right in the same target, although we calculate things a little bit differently. But this is still far less than if we were just trying to copycat our neighbors that are trying to go for high ratings, who would be about 70. So trying to be specific to the risks and needs of our district. So this would be a little less than 1 year's worth of operating cash on hand, about 9 months. That being said, since we reviewed this in detail before, the recommendations for a resolution or ordinance that amends the administrative code where this policy is.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have one. Will this be, well, who would be in charge? Because technically this is fluid. It's constantly changing of something mandated by the state or federal government. So would you be in charge of making sure, or do you look at this every 6 months? Do you look at it every month? Do you look at it once a year? Because that number would change.
So the range of targets from minimum to maximum are mostly, they get recalculated every year as part of the budget. They're mostly based on the size of our budget. So as our budgets go up, it's going to go up naturally and the replacement value of our infrastructure. Those are the two big components that feed into this, which is adjusted either by inflation, which number we have, or if we do major additions to our system, like 3 pump stations or a lift station, then we would adjust for that as well. So you wouldn't actually see, other than inflationary increases, you wouldn't see much adjustment to these targets on a year by year basis. Where you will see a lot of fluctuation is how much cash we actually have compared to those targets, and you would get updated on those.
So would that would be once a year when we do information about audits, or would this be quarterly, every 6 months? How we're doing? How does that gonna be?
Right. So you would be updated at least every year during the budget of where we are compared to these targets. Again, these are goals for us to move towards, to say, yes, we have enough, or no, we don't have enough. And that's really all they are goals that tell us whether we're healthy or not, and in what range. And so there's no imposed requirements that we do anything depending on where we're at, but they do give us a guidepost and a direction.
So again, you're stating you're only gonna do that once a year?
Well,
Didn't we talk about looking at this like half of the year? Within half the year's time, instead of waiting a whole year?
We talked about doing it at, if there was a budget mid-year change.
Yeah.
Thought that's what was discussed in.
And we could pull the information together, if we wanted to do it twice a year over the next couple of years, if there was, a need, but really monthly, you're showing how much cash we have on hand. So I think you actually get an update on how much cash we have, but I think what Rick is saying is annually, obviously you go, okay, what's our valuation? These are our new targets. And then, but it shouldn't
Give a
really,
report on the evaluation, but do we know where it stands relative to we are on goal?
right. So that, as Jake mentioned, you'll get monthly as part of the treasurer's report. Is here's our target, here's our cash.
Okay.
Where are we within that range every month?
Okay.
But the sort of intentional action plan, let's say if we're below the minimum or below the target, is really part of our financial planning. So that's why it comes around in budget, as we look at actions tied to that.
Okay.
I have a question. In the Budget and Finance Committee, were any members of the volunteers, did they ask any questions that may be good for us to know about?
I think I covered the most of them. One of them was about flexibility, right? Does this tie our hands when it comes annually? And the answer to that is no. Basically you're going to get the information. Hey, this is what our policy says, right? We want to get there within 3 years, or we want to get here within 10 years. But then it's full board discretion to actually take any action to go up or down,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So that's, you still have full reign over what the actual action is. The only other question was kind of how the plan compares to other districts, which we provided some of that. And then the updates, how often do we do the updates? And so at least annually, if the board wants another mid-year, certainly do that as well. But you will get the monthly statements too, just not a full presentation, I guess.
And I'm not a member of that committee, but I did attend, and I just strongly stated that I wanted very cautious additions to the reserves during the time in which we were making payments to the water authority. Still, that was a very concerning time.
And what was the response of the committee members?
We have full flexibility, full flexibility to make
Full
those actions.
flexibility. I just wanted to make it known. I'm very concerned about those times when we
So
have
they agree.
millions of dollars in payments to the water authority.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So again, I just want to have it clear. So it'll be a monthly, will be in our paperwork packet. It will give us where we're at every month. Okay, great.
I wonder, maybe on occasion, just a little presentation, 1 or 2 slides might be good as we kind of ramp up.
Yeah.
Just so we.
But we normally do a
see where it's at.
mid-year look at the budget, whether we change it or not, we still do a sanity check of where we are relative to plan, and it could be appropriate at that time.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
think Rick's got enough on his plate not to have to do it on a monthly basis.
Monthly might be just.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion?
Well, I was just gonna say, again, lots of effort by Rick, really
Yeah.
getting us, on the road to being very professional with all of the policies. So thank you.
This is very good. So I so move.
Director Johnson moves, we approve the ordinance,
Second,
seconded by Director Dale. Roll call vote, please.
Director Johnson,
Aye.
Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Townsend Smith,
Aye.
Director Dale,
aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
motion carries 5-0.
Item number D, 12D, consider adoption of a resolution establishing classifications and monthly pay ranges for district employees and the general manager effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025.
And I think Carlene's gonna handle this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is a routine action item that the board reviews each June in preparation for the grade adjustments that were previously agreed to with our bargaining units. So all three of our MOUs with our bargaining units require adjustment of our pay grade structure in accordance with CPI with in accordance with CPI for the term of the MOU. So this is different than our employees' base pay COLAs. So there's a max on the base pay COLAs that there isn't for the grade movement. So this year, the change for the 12 months most recently published was 3.2%. So this increases the minimums and maximums for each pay grade by that amount by 3.2%. And it also adds several new classifications to the pay grade structure, the titles that were discussed previously in the staffing plan and staffing analysis presentation. I actually moved the intern classification down a grade because with the progression over the last few years, CPI has been quite high. So that got to be pretty high for the intern level. So I created a new grade below that. It had to be N0 because we were previously starting with N1. And then, the custodian warehouse clerk would be a series position that which we would hire in at the 1 level. Pumps and motors technician would also be a series classification. And then it adds the purchasing and facilities lead classification 1 level above where the purchasing specialist currently is. And then it makes an administrative correction to 1 grade that was 1% off in a previous update in a previous year.
So yeah, these, and as you know, like Carlene said, these adjust the ranges. So this is, and it's per the MOU.
For the MOU, there's no
yeah.
direct fiscal impact to employees' pay with this. This just moves the grade.
Kind of keeps us on par with
Right.
inflation. Yeah.
And it's appropriate.
I was not around when the MOUs were approved and maybe some other board members weren't either, but when are those sunsetting?
So we have the exempt group expires a year from now. So that'll be negotiated this fiscal year. And the non-exempt bargaining units are a year after that. But there's a Me Too clause in there. So as we renegotiate COLAs and grade movement with the exempt group, those 2 topics that are covered by the Me Too clause, which is the COLAs and the medical cost sharing, those will be negotiated with all 3 bargaining units this year, but the rest of the MOU will be the following year.
Okay.
They're in 3 and 4 year contract periods. Is that right?
4 and 5 year
4 and
this
5.
time.
4 for example.
4 for exempt and 5 for the 2 non-exempt groups.
When I came on board, they were all came together at once and they were 3-year contract.
Yes, first we tried the 4, see how that worked. And then they were comfortable going up to 3.
And we were spending so much time in negotiations that basically the operations got shut down for about.
It
a
is
month.
challenging to do 3 at once. It is, and it'll still be
Opposite.
challenging to do the COLA piece all at once, but not as challenging as the entire.
And we did budget to do a full comp study
We did
in
budget
this
to do
this coming fiscal year. So that
Right,
was-
so both the
Yep.
district and the bargaining units will have that information as to where we stand in terms of the labor market.
Okay. Thank you for your
Thank you.
Any other discussion, questions? Is there a motion?
Also move.
Moved by Director Mack, seconded by Director Hamilton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number E, consider approval of the San Diego County Bonsall Park quitclaim and grant a new easement.
Chad?
Why didn't we build a pipe in the easement?
This goes back to when it was the San Luis Rey Downs golf course. And the pipeline was there. And if the board recalls, when we were doing the title for headquarters here and we had the triangle that they called no
Yeah.
man's land where we were 7 feet off on our survey, this is a similar situation. So the county parks department now owns that land. They are developing it as North County's largest park. And in doing all of their surveying title reports, they discovered that the district's existing 14-inch water main is not within its easement. So we have an easement. We don't need that easement. This has been going on for more than 1 year, county staff working with district staff, and it was a chicken and an egg thing. And so we worked with Alfred and his team, and we were able to develop a letter of understanding between the two agencies that this is all going to be done in good faith. And we're going to do this. The county needed to go forward with their design work, which had some of their facilities in the easement, which we don't need. And vice versa, we don't want them building over our pipeline within our easement. So with that, we now have, the county has already granted us their grant deed of easement, which has already been signed, which is pending for Jake's. However, it is contingent on this board taking action today to do the partial quit claim of the easement that we do not need. And so we have all the documents prepared. Everything is ready to be signed. County staff pings me 2 times a week on the subject of this. I said, I will follow up with you as soon as this board reviews and takes its action. We provided some exhibits that show it. It goes right through the proposed park and all of its facilities. The good thing on this park is when it was first being designed, the water and sewer infrastructure was all going to be district owned, but it only served this one park. And that's a lot. We were just talking about the $1 billion in infrastructure. We did not want all of that on the district's valuation. So we will have double detector checks and sewer lift stations. Everything on site is going to be county owned and maintained. We take it in Camino Del Rey up the street. So that'll really help, but we've prepared everything. Legal has vetted everything. General manager is. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have. It really is a housekeeping item. But it was a lot of back and forth to get to where we are today.
Do you anticipate? I would imagine they're gonna have to buy a lot of water from us, right?
We hope. We hope. They'll have, I mean, they're going to have restrooms. They're going to have obviously drinking fountains. We have been told, I haven't seen their final designs, but there was at one time planned to have 2 park host sites.
We want lots of grass.
Lots of grass.
Yeah.
the
Lots
grass,
of water.
Not turf. Yeah. Lots of, or synthetic turf, hopefully real grass. Yeah. So it'll be a good park. And then that walking trail actually will start there and terminates just to our most southwest corner of our property here. So it'll be a nice walking trail from one side to the other.
very exciting. Nice work.
Thank you. We tried. I think Rick was acting GM and reviewed. He's like, we have to make this make a little bit more sense on this. It was a little too technical.
Well, in the spirit of freeing up Chad's time, focus on the pump stations and detachment. I move approval.
I second.
Yes.
Moved by Director Dale, seconded by Director Johnson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number F, consider adoption of an ordinance amending and updating the Administrative Code, Chapter 3.01, regular meetings.
Yes, and this is the item we brought back. We had originally, we wanted to make some changes to this section of the admin code, really just to reflect some schedule changes as far as the Tuesdays in December and that kind of thing, but took the opportunity to clean up some items in that policy. One was just a typo, and but also some of the language on the closed session Just obviously we're following the Brown Act and those kind of things. And I know we received a comment that, could we be very clear that public comment will be, we are open for public comment on both open session items and closed session items. So open session already covered it, but under that closed session item, we did add that when requested and called upon, members of the public may provide public comment on any matters appearing on the agenda during open session, including closed session. So want to make it really clear that obviously public is open to speak on any of the matters that we're taking on here as the district. So with that addition,
We discussed this at length. So I so move for approval.
Moved by Director Johnson, seconded
Second.
by Director Dale. All, roll call vote, please.
Director Johnson,
Aye.
Director Mack.
Aye.
Director Townsend Smith,
Aye.
Director Dale.
Aye.
Director Hamilton,
Aye.
motion carries 5-0.
Item number G, discussion of possible action regarding CSDA Board of Directors elections, seat A.
yes. So we have there's an open seat that represents us on the CSDA, California Special Districts Association, and it's the Southern Network seat A. Currently, Joe McKenzie is the is the CSDA board member. Joe McKenzie with Vista Irrigation District, and we received the district received basically 2 letters requesting support. One from the incumbent from Joe McKenzie, and then one from Jason Dafford, who is the general manager of Valley Sanitary District, who's also running for that same seat. There's also a third candidate, Ross Leha. We didn't receive anything from Ross, but wanted to bring this to the board. We have 1 vote for the CSDA board seat, and so wanted to bring this to the board to get some direction on support from Rainbow. So we attached the letters, both of them attached a letter of recommendation from their board that they were supporting their candidate, and then some of the qualifications of the candidate. And so we provided that for review, and so we're looking for board discussion and direction on the vote for the CSDA Southern Network seat A. I'll just say I'll start off. Obviously, I know Joe McKenzie. I also know Jason Dafford. I worked with him quite a bit up at he was I know he worked at the city of Oceanside. Most of my experience with him was up at Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District. We actually sat on a technical advisory group together as part of a treatment plant that we oversaw. So engineer, good guy. I won't try to taint anything, or push you one way or another, but some familiarity. I think we have 2 good people in front of us is the bottom line.
Comments on Danforth?
On Jason, he worked for me for several years. I think very highly of Jason, and I think he would be an excellent candidate for CSDA. He hasn't served previously. That's one thing. Whereas Joe
It's tough to get an incumbent for 20.
yeah, whereas Joe's gone through, it seems like, or she's gone from committee all the way up through a leadership role and maybe now starting that process again. And those are the differences I see.
I like to speak also. I work with Joe, Finance Corp. So she has a lot of experience. I know, she still wants to, but I do not know Jason.
Are you looking for a motion?
Yeah, I guess so.
So much emotion.
Well, we
I have to
decide.
abstain. I only know Joe and I like her, but I don't know the other gentleman, so I have no opinion.
Well, put forward a motion for Jason Dathorn.
I'll second that.
What,
Any
where's he?
discussion? And I'll be quite honest. My experience over the last 2 years with Joe has been that she has not taken into consideration our needs and requirements in her decision making, both at LAFCO and CSDA. I think she's overextended.
I was gonna say that.
She's involved in too many things
Mhm.
to really give the full attention necessary to represent us. That's my personal.
Where's the gentleman?
He now works for Valley Sanitary District, which is up in the
Indio.
Indio area, yeah. It's a wastewater district there.
I have a question. I know Joe was also running for another position.
LAFCO.
Yes. Was that decided upon yet?
No,
Okay. So she also is running for that.
I don't think we've been asked to vote on the LAFCO.
No,
No.
no, she's a current commissioner on LAFCO, so,
Oh, she's
yeah,
current. Okay.
yes.
The only thing I'll say is I agree 100%, which Mr. Hamilton said. I think Joe's been, I don't know, maybe just overwhelmed in a lot of stuff she does. The only thing I'm worried about is setting a precedent. They are a neighbor right next to us. And I don't know if this will be documented, but I think there could be hard feelings. And I don't think that's a good thing. So I'm gonna vote for Joe. I agree with you. I'd like to see somebody new. But they are our neighbor agency and I'm gonna stick with her.
And I may choose to abstain because I do know one candidate well, not.
Well, first of all, we have a motion and a second on the floor that has to be decided.
Okay.
Or voted on. You know, if you can vote or abstain is appropriate. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
3 abstentions. Does the motion carry?
No. No.
Need a majority.
Yeah.
Then is there a motion or a counter motion?
I guess you could tell me to vote for whoever the heck I want to, and you don't have to worry about it. That's another option.
I think that might be the best.
Is what?
Vote for whoever you want to.
Well, we're
Let
looking,
me-
we're
let
looking
me
for
make
more
the
direction,
decision.
but if there's lack of direction, it could,
Oh.
the direction could be, go ahead and place your vote. Good luck.
Drop the kick and punt it. yeah.
Well,
I'll move a motion. We vote for Joe.
well, okay, just also Jake, though. I like your idea because you know both candidates. I know for myself, I don't know the one candidate and I know the other candidate. And I don't think that should determine a vote of you know them or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So, we can do a motion for Joe, but then I'll do one for the general manager just to vote for us. If we can do that.
So Julie is proposing a motion that the general manager cast the rainbow vote as he sees appropriate. Is that correct?
Knowing both candidates.
Delegating the authority. to general
Delegate
manager.
the authority to select a candidate vote. Without
Well,
our-
you know both candidates.
I do, to a degree, yes.
Is there a second for Julie's motion?
Yeah, I'll
You
second
never
that.
got a second. So
I'll
you-
second Julie's, yeah.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you for your trust.
Yeah. Just don't tell
Well,
us. No.
there was brought up. Okay,
That was weird.
Totally. We'll probably have the same discussion when the selection for our CSDA LAFCO representative vote comes up.
When's that going to be?
I don't know exactly, sometime this summer, I believe. And
I'm not
I
sure.
know she's already campaigning.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Hmm. we'll address that. Jake, are you comfortable with this?
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
Cause
Yep,
you
no
know
problem.
both.
He
Jake.
proposed it. I hope he's going.
I'd rather have someone deciding who knows both candidates.
Okay, that's fair.
And don't tell me. I don't want to know who you voted.
And I do want to know, so you can tell me on the slide whenever you do it. Information items, operations report, engineering report, administrative services report, and finance report. Is there any discussion or questions relative to these reports?
I did just want to highlight one simple thing out of the finance report. Talked about it at last week's meeting. The good news is water sales are finally picking up in May and June. Even June
Well,
so
after the
far.
last couple of days, I'm probably really gonna
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah, but specifically in May seemed to be the transitional point, all of May. And so we're in terms of system demands, I think we're a little over 20% this month above where we were at the same point last month. I think sales wise, we'll hit the 10,000 acre feet. And looking like the summer might be stronger than last year. So we'll see. But good news that the direction's heading in the right direction for sales.
Is it possible, Rick, to give us that update throughout the summer? I'm just kind of curious if we could get back to what our projections
Mhm.
were earlier.
I'll make those highlights during the finance items.
Normally you have a chart in here.
Mhm.
It's here.
Rick, I would like to point out a very positive thing that you have done. And that's in your treasury report, first paragraph. And that is that we have higher interest because you have moved the funds from no interest to those earning interest. So thank you.
And we budgeted for it next year, so pressure's on.
Yes.
Yeah, have
Keep
to
up
check.
the
No,
good
but
work.
that was a proactive, positive move. So
Hmm.
thank you.
And then for engineering, we prepared a short presentation for the board to bring an update on the pump station project. You'd like to go through that? Can go as fast or as slow as y'all want. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the names of each pump station, the West Lilac, the Rancho Amigos, and the Dentro de Lomas pump stations project. So there's your locations of each one, the Lucky Director Johnson in Division 1. For
Watch it every day.
all three locations. Here is the West Lilac pump station site. So this is aerial looking in, this grassy area. Oh, this doesn't work on our screen. The grassy area in the upper left, that's the pump station site. You can see us grading it now. The retaining wall has been formed. See the middle school in the background. And that is the watershed building right there on the far left of the screen. So once the pad is poured, concrete is cured, everything's been tested, we will then, with a crane, move that to its site. Yes.
This morning, there was a crane putting a very large pipe in.
Yep.
What's the purpose of that?
So those are the pump cans.
Okay,
So
thank
those
you.
get put in. Yep, the pumps and the pump cans, all that gets put in. So it all gets shipped separately. We're storing everything at our thoroughbred lift station. And then it gets set in, and that's just for vibrations. They don't want anything bolted up or breaking.
They set those pump cans. They got to pour the slab with those pump cans set.
I didn't
so
know.
you can, yeah,
Got it.
drop 'em in.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep. And so you're gonna see some coming up, you're gonna see some really good photos of that exact work being done at one of the other sites. So you can see the pump station building itself, and then just to the right, covered in that white plastic, that is the roof. And again, they're shipped separately, just meet limits of what these trucks can transfer. These are coming all the way from Centralia, Illinois.
Good.
So takes, I think it takes, each one takes about 5 or 6 days, weather depending, to get over to us. The Dentro de Loma site. So this is where what was called Bonsall Oaks and is now the Havens subdivision will be coming up to. So we actually procured this site from them at zero cost. There was a lot of horse trading that went on. And Malik Tamimi, our senior project manager, did a lot of the negotiations on the site when able to secure it at a zero cost to the district, which is awesome. It was a beautiful hillside covered in rock, but we got it nonetheless. So here's us cutting into it. It'll have a very substantial retaining wall on all 3 sides for it. And so if you went out there, you would see the formwork being done and all the rebar. I've actually gone out to a couple times. In the very back, kind of where that mini excavator is, there's a shelf of rock going up to that. And it just could not break the rock, could not break the rock, could not break the rock. And so we brought the geotech back out for their analysis. And I said, well, you're never going to get any better compaction than this rock. So just leave it there. So everything else was removed and was done nicely. We actually put in a blasting clause in the contractor's bid documents for this because we didn't know if they'd be able to rip it, but they ripped it with their machinery, no problem, which was really nice. Another great aerial. And now you can see that shelf of rock that's going to remain there. It's out of the way. It doesn't matter to us. And it saved the contractor some time as well.
Is that a drone that we have?
It's not, the district cannot fly a drone. So we have a consultant fly its drone.
Our
I can't-
CM, right? Our construction manager.
Our construction manager flies
got
their
one.
drone.
It's a license.
Yeah.
You need a license.
You just-
I keep asking to be that employee at this district to get the training and come fly the drone. But yeah, so it's not ours, but it's our consultant, our construction managers. And then here is the Rancho Amigos pump station site. And so we have this beautiful corner
Decided again.
right in there. This is actually very flat. Where we got it is very flat. We contemplated this entire, you can see that large cropping of rocks just above the word Amigos and pump. We actually contemplated that entire slope and site and ultimately settled on that grass corner where it has a nice rounded edge at the toe of the slope. So this one arrived first, and this one, you're going to see some pictures coming up. There's a private bridge that we had to cross. We could not come down via Erner to Rancho Amigos. It was too tight. The semi truck, we actually flew the actual truck driver to the site months in advance because we had some issues when we delivered our Rancho Heights pump station. It was a different driver, and he's like, I can't make any of these turns. So the actual driver came and he's like, you would have to move these rocks. I'm going to hit that mailbox. These trees would have to go. We contemplate, there was no, I told staff, there is not a stupid idea that you can throw everything at the wall and let's see what sticks. So they thought, can a helicopter do this? How can we do it? We ultimately crossed the residents' private bridge. And in that we did a structural inspection. During that, they gave us the weight limitations of what the bridge could do. The bridge is in good standing. It took a special truck and trailer. It's a very long trailer so that as it crosses, at no one time did we exceed its weight limit. So we staged it here first to then coordinate all of those different logistics. You'll see it getting into the yard was relatively easy. Operations was a huge help and helped grade out our driveway coming in from Highway 395, which you can see right there. Getting out presented a separate set of challenges, which you can see here.
Did we have to pay the owner to drive over his bridge?
We purchased an easement, which came with rights to access that event. So we didn't pay to actually cross the bridge.
So it's a permanent easement we'll have now?
We do. And I actually have all of those costs that I can give the board as well. So again, we had about 8 or 9 of our operations staff assisting the engineering department and the contractor and the pump manufacturer. This was all hands on deck and a tow truck to drag it out. We couldn't get it out. We actually need to be going southbound on 395, but it couldn't make that turn. So he's going to do a U-turn in that. And you can see that we've stopped traffic. So this was awesome getting it out. And we did not get stuck, which was like,
Glad I was-
Who was the team that was this creative to problem solve?
this is between the engineering team and Robert Gutierrez and the operations department.
You said all hands on deck.
All hands on it. There was, again, bring us an idea. It's not going to be shot down. We're going to throw it at the wall and see what sticks at the end of the day.
Wow.
So here we are crossing the bridge. So this is this. The truck is the truck. There's nothing different about that, but that trailer is a special
The
long
whip.
trailer. So that, again, at any one given time, we never exceeded the weight limit of that bridge.
You hit nothing?
I'm sorry?
You hit nothing?
I am pleased to say we hit nothing.
Wow.
Pretty amazing.
And just now we're on site and just, it was tricky. It was very tricky getting it in there. So now here we are, the crane is waiting for it. So as all that's being done, the crane has left our lower yard, is now set up at the other site. So we're utilizing the same resources and now it's all being set. And then Julie, as you mentioned here, here's those pump cans that are being set. You can see the people working on the inside to line up those flanges and start bolting everything together. Here's what the inside looks like. The really nice thing about these pump stations is for Ahmed and his staff and our system operators. This is now, we've kind of standardized the fleet, so to speak. So all of these are the same.
Yeah.
And so it's not learning something new each site you go to. Oh, let me open the manual. This is complete. This is almost like Southwest and their Boeing system, which is very nice.
How is SDG&E? Are they timely gonna help connect these?
I will. Yeah. I have some great talking points on SDG&E. Yep. So the Rancho Amigos one is the only one equipped with an on-site permanent emergency generator. The other two sites are plug and play ready, but they do not have generators. And this generator alone was a little over $1 million. So that's why all of the
Just
sites,
the generator?
just the generator.
Just the generator.
That's why all three sites did not get it.
Why is it so expensive?
Oh,
It-
generators.
Let me, yeah. The building, the second building is the generator building, almost as large as the
Yeah.
pump station building.
Yeah, they're big.
This is bigger than those ones that we had stored in our lower yards for a while that are at the different pump stations out. They're very large.
Just out of curiosity, we have room at the other two locations if and we
We do.
ever to identify.
We
the
poured
need?
pads. They'll have manual transfer switches. So if we have a tow behind generator, which we were talking about the grant specialist, we are actively looking for those. We would pull up and just plug right in.
Okay.
Yep. So it's there, all the antennas, everything, nothing's in their way when we need them.
Chad, when we do detach and all, this would be excellent to have with the ribbon cutting.
There you go. Okay.
Right next to the vineyard.
Yeah, this is a beautiful site. This site's a beautiful site. All right, so you all had some great questions. So on the delivery, again, that thinking outside the box, getting it here, we wanted them here, even though the site wasn't ready. It helped us organize all of those different logistics of the truck, trailers, the cranes, all of that, crossing the bridge just the one time. And then on the critical path items, so I think we brought to Jake, did we talk to the budget and finance committee? We talked about those out of the box thinkings of air freighting the valves.
Oh, yeah.
I get the committees.
We talked about the board.
At the board as
Yeah,
well?
there was questions on the change orders.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So it was that change order. So there are some valves that are custom made in South Korea. They don't start them until you order them. And I think I texted Jake. I said, well, it's true. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, especially when you pay up front. And so we did that. Our order got pushed to the front of their assembly line. And we were expecting those valves in early October. They are already on site.
Right.
So
Good
they were
job.
air freighted, made it through customs. We have them. The second longest lead item is the electrical switchgear. Our contractor, Pacific Hydrotech, when I met with their president, said, I think we did this job in the late 90s where we got some temporary switchgear, and I wonder if that could work here. So again, we started putting some pieces together. We have procured temporary switchgear. So we're gonna have to do everything twice, but it allows us to come online before SDG&E is ready. As that's all being done, again, I'm gonna give big credit to Malik Tamimi. He came to me and said, what if I reach out to our SDG&E liaison and just set up a weekly progress meeting where we can start talking? So we've already had 2 of those meetings. That person is now talking to the operations department, the inspection department. And so all of these things are starting to fall into place much faster than we had anticipated. So it's a lot of out of the box. It's a lot of outreach.
Lots of teamwork.
Yeah. And the SDG&E liaison who Malik meets with on a weekly basis is very vested in this project. wants to see it done, doesn't want them. They don't want us.
Does he
being-
live in the district?
We're right. They don't, but they are our account rep. And so they know the district extremely well. And they don't want these pump stations sitting here and going, we're just waiting on SDG&E. now."
Yeah.
So we've kind of already started working that. Talking
A
about.
big PR
Yes,
blackball if they.
yes. So the easement that we've obtained, you can see where this pump station is and where the small truck and trailers. We procured a temporary construction easement as well. We will be connecting to the district's main line directly in front, almost between that front building and the vineyard there. That's where our water line crosses perpendicular. So that's what we're construct. But then following, you're heading due south towards Camino del Rey right now, if you're looking at this photo. And there's a power pole almost at where that kind of dirt road just kind of goes out of the photo. That's where we had to connect to the power. And the med and his stuff, it's been more than 2 years when we met out there to where can we get this 3-phase power from? Where's there enough? Met with SDG. The district had to coordinate between this property owner and SDG&E to obtain that easement. Has nothing to do with us, but SDG&E, if you don't get it, we don't care.
Yeah.
The owner didn't want this there. So we brokered that deal and we have that easement as well. And that's everything's recorded. It's done.
Are we gonna have a chain link fence or something like that around that?
So there's an existing chain link fence that's running just on the far right side of this screen right now. That'll be turned to wrought iron fence. We'll have a gate that goes through. We already have a gate. But this is on private property and it's only accessible via a horse trail. And so we're not really concerned. The site, you cannot get into the site. It's locked. I don't think we're proposing a fence around it. We'll work with the property owner on that if they wanted to do something, but not at this time.
This is off Camino del Rey.
Camino del Rey is to the south and Rancho Amigos is to the
It's like
west and north.
behind the Moody
Creek.
wine. Those are the Moody grapes, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are
And
you gonna, are you gonna have like, cameras? I know like the pump station near my house, cause I really like. They have lights and everything to make sure this, are you gonna have stuff like that too?
There's no lights on the outside of this, but again, we're surrounded. Jake, do you know what the neighborhood is? It Via Mariposa
No, it's the
that Jack Beatty lives in?
yeah. Saratoga.
Saratoga State.
Estates,
Yeah.
So those
Behind that loop.
the blue.
Yeah. Behind.
2 of those homes are less than 100 yards from this building, and then we are on the Moody Winery property as well. We're not concerned with vandalism at this time, but again, as we go out there, we can absolutely reassess.
It's really not in an area that is trafficked by general population.
A car coming down this road would very quickly, because we have an easement through all these, the Rancho Amigos kind of just ends and turns and you very quickly become on private property. So anyone hanging out there loitering is, I would imagine the homeowners are going to be our best first line of defense. But we've installed cameras at lift station number 2, Gomez, several other sites. So those can all be added.
We're going through each of the sites and adding more and more cameras.
I think that's something, no, if we're not gonna have a fence around camera.
Well, and again, this will be transitioned to a wrought iron fence on the most westerly side. So security on that side will be beefed.
Cause I know the only reason why is I was watching a news thing the other day. And those robbers of stealing copper wire is started up again.
Yep.
Yeah.
So. I thought at least a camera.
Yeah, the good thing
So you
about,
can see the flash at night.
yeah. The good thing about this is everything is under that concrete slab. All the SDG&E just coming in triple phase power, all that's underground.
Everything's underground.
Underground goes into a transformer, underground back into the pump station.
So they can't.
Not that you can't, it would take a lot
Lot
of
of
work, though.
digging. A lot more effort than they're probably willing to expend.
And that's the end of that. Happy to answer any more questions that the board has.
Great.
Great.
Yeah,
Nice report, Chad. Appreciate
best part of the meeting.
it. Kudos to your team. And keep it on schedule.
We will. I don't care if my hair turns gray. I just want the hair to stay. Might all be gray then.
So
Uh,
SDG&E, I mean, do you think they're gonna be right on schedule or?
I think we are absolutely going to use the temporary switchgear.
Uh-huh.
And then while we work with them towards the end, They know that our goal is early to mid-October to be online. But that's why we secured that temporary switchgear, just in case there's a hiccup on there, we can still fire these up and turn them on.
And they give you like monthly or weekly
That,
updates?
that's not through SDG&E. Then we would continue to work with them, waiting for their inspection, pulling their wire. Then we would do a second shutdown and switch over to them. So it's more work because we have to do it twice, but it allows us to come on earlier,
Earlier,
Mhm.
which is worth it.
which we, savings involved are
Correct.
great.
Do all three? But all three pump stations have to be up and running for us to do the business.
That is correct.
Right?
Yes,
Okay.
no pressure. Yes.
Yeah, no pressure. Great report. Thank you. Any other comments?
I just wanted to add and congratulate our operations team that had 0 turnover. We've got 4 more days in the fiscal year. We just received 1 retirement notice. But it's going to be next fiscal year. So that's our biggest department. And so we've had an entire year with 0 turnover in that department. I'm very excited about that. Great report.
Rick, anything on finance?
No.
Okay. Reports and comments. Legal counsel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did a written report for the board's information, and this is an item, the staff is on top of this and working on it. But for the board's information, there's a new law that was established as part of Senate Bill 553. So the district is now required to develop and implement a workplace violence prevention plan. And that bill, new legislation that details a number of requirements for workplace training, reporting, response protocol, incident response and investigation, plans for ongoing assessment, corrective procedures when hazards are identified, incident log, and an annual evaluation of the plan. And these new requirements take effect next month in July. The legislative history on the bill was somewhat interesting because it showed that this bill came about as a result of a workplace incident event in Half Moon Bay. It was an active shooter event. And Cal OSHA cited the 2 employers with 41 safety violations, basically for, failure to address previous incidents and failure to have a plan or procedure in place. But the legislature itself disagreed. They thought that was, for an active shooter to come down, to come down on the employers like that. They thought they called it an overly aggressive approach. So the legislature basically responded with this bill. But then Cal OSHA is saying they'll adopt new regulations in 2026. These are basically the current requirements, but see what happens when Cal OSHA does this. There may be some revisions to it. And I also wanted to provide another update. This is a recent development that came up after I wrote this report on the Government Taxpayer Protection and Accountability Act that we had discussed before, which was the voter initiative that would have imposed a slew of new requirements on public agencies statewide whenever there was an increase in a fee or charge, and would have expanded the definition of what constitutes a quote unquote tax that would have then triggered all of the requirements for tax approval, including voter approval. And this bill had this really strange retroactive provision. So if it went through, for basically any fee that would have, any district had approved after January 1, 2022 would have to comply with these new requirements and require the board to review those fees and approve them again. So, raised a lot of concerns statewide, Aqua, CSDA, League of California Cities, CASA, the whole everybody. So the governor's administration filed an emergency petition and an emergency petition directly to the California Supreme Court. It's really interesting and very rare thing, but it was approved. And the California Supreme Court came back and said, this voter initiative is unconstitutional, that it cannot be placed on the November 2024 ballot. So, that's the update there, that this bill is now dead and won't move forward. And the Supreme Court, essentially in their reasoning, they said the initiative was so broad that it would have fundamentally changed the law, fundamentally changed the way, agencies statewide administer fees and charges. And they said it bore the potential to impair essential government functions. And that such a fundamental change essentially can't be done by a voter initiative. It would have to go through, the standard full legislative process. Don't have to worry about that one.
Wasn't this the Howard Jarvis sponsor?
Yeah, it was Harvard Jarvis, and there was this, it was like, what do they call it? The California Round Table or
Business
something.
Roundtable.
Yes, exactly.
On that workplace violence plan, Luke and Carlene, they put together a plan sitting in the general manager's inbox. So we'll be in compliance on July 1. I just have to give it the
That was a question.
read through.
My question.
Yeah. And there will, I believe, be some training. That's part of it that'll have to occur. And I believe the board does have to be a part of that training. So
Right, just like the sexual harassment prevention. This is because honestly, one of our most vulnerable points is during our public meetings.
Yep.
Because we have to leave the store open and then there's access to the rest of our field through there. So yeah, the board will be trained when we have an outside trainer come in and deliver that training. It's an important
Is
topic.
that going to be ongoing training like the sexual harassment every 2 years?
It's gonna be, I believe, every 1 year.
annual. Yeah.
Can you do it online? Okay. General managers report.
Yeah, a couple things wanted to cover, and I've been meaning to cover this. I kept forgetting. We talked a couple of months ago about Senator Butler, who was the replacement for Feinstein. She replaced Feinstein when she passed away, and had a open window for appropriations request. We submitted that an application for an earmark. We submitted for $4 million for some sewer improvements for our wastewater side. And I found out this is a couple weeks old, but that they are putting that through to the subcommittee that it's going to, and I don't recall exactly which subcommittee that was.
Senate Appropriations or something.
Yeah, Senate Appropriations. So, no guarantee still, and kind of thought it was a long shot going in, but it's looking a little better now. It's being sent to committee. So we've got some good potential there for some pretty significant grant funding. We did receive capacity fees from Bonzel Oaks. So that's good news. It was for their first phase, 59 residential units, so both water and sewer capacity fees. They'd already paid a portion, actually way back. They paid a portion of them, so they got refunded a portion, but I think it was in total 1.2 million.
Yeah.
About 1.2 million. So that's the good news. It's not bad news, but we'd already accounted for it in the financial plan. So we were expecting those to come in, but the good news is they came in. So that just happened. A couple of things I wanted to let you know at the customer and communications and customer service committee, we brought to them the idea of adding to that committee legislative affairs. So and so the committee agreed that they would entertain an update on what we were doing, and really the big thing is we're just starting to put together a legislative policy, and so that will go through that committee first, and then it'll come to the board. And so thought that was a good place for in that committee to do that. So they've agreed to take that on, and so over the next few months we'll be bringing that through. A couple of things, just updates. I attended the Rainbow Planning Group meeting last week, so that was interesting. But they are, they've got their struggles, a small community, and so I got to hear some of that, which was really good. They still struggle with cell service and internet providers, and so they're that planning group's working hard to try to solve some pretty big issues over there. But got to give them an update too, just introduce myself and then gave them an update on kind of where we were at with everything. And so they had some good feedback too, but mostly well received, and they'd read the newsletter. So yeah, at least a few of them had already read the newsletter, and so they appreciated the article that was in there, kind of giving them an update on what was going on. So So interesting group, but and then the other thing I wanted to let you know, the Farm Bureau, you know, been in touch with a few of the folks that are heavily involved in the Farm Bureau, Grangetto and some others. And, you know, there's some really good updates that come out of that organization, you know, when they have you know, they have their board meetings and all these kind of different things. And they provide like a weekly update, like a month, you know, every Monday they'll give a update on kind of what's going on, and it's, you know, a lot of local stuff. And so I asked to be on that Monday list, and they responded and said, well, we'll put you on the list, but usually it's members, right? So if you know, if you're an associate member, and they have like this real very affordable associate membership, it's $99 a year or whatever. So we are now associate members of the Farm Bureau. We get all that information. It's $99 annually. I signed us up for it. So but I wanted to let you know that we did that.
How do we read about this?
I can forward along those to you if you like.
Yeah.
Okay.
For $99.
Make sure we get our money's worth. Okay. So
I didn't say full member week. It's only like 120 or something.
which one?
Membership.
I don't know. That's the one. They said this is probably the most appropriate one for you,
Yeah.
you know, for you just be an associate member and that kind of thing. But I think it's good to keep tabs on what's going on out there. And plus, you know, these programs that we put out, that's a nice avenue
Right.
to get those things
Good communication channel.
right. So I think that's all I got this month.
San Diego County Water Authority.
Yeah, I mean, last month, I think you probably already know this. The big actions were setting the public hearing, which is this Thursday for their rates. There was a lot of discussion around that, but they will be taking it up this Thursday. And I don't know how much I've talked about this, but you know, the city of San Diego, well, I think this originated from the city of San Diego, but they had an idea of an option for helping them deal with some of their cash flow issues by basically fronting fixed cost payments. So, you know, Water Authority kind of took that direction and actually came up with a program that's going to be discussed on Thursday too, of if you want to front your again your fixed costs, the fixed payments for next calendar year, so you can pay them now, like pay it all now, so a huge, you know, cash sum up front. They'll or you can do it now, you can do it on January 1st, but they need commitments to the program. They'll give you a discount, basically like a 4%. I think the biggest one is a 6% if you paid like July 1 for all your fixed fees for the entire calendar year 25.
They must have some serious problems if they're doing that.
Yeah.
And so
Concerning.
Anyways, what administration can afford to
Wow.
put out that sort of chunk? I mean, like the city of San Diego.
yeah, the
Big
cities,
chunk.
Yeah.
I've heard of, there's a few agencies that are considering it. I haven't heard for sure anyone that's going to take advantage of it. But the idea was that they could potentially lower the necessary rate increase by not having to shore up these cash flow issues. And so depending on the amount of participation that they get, that's kind of what they're looking at. It didn't sound like it was more than 1% or so that it would make a difference. But that's the first thing they're considering. And then I think what I read in the board packet for Thursday was they're also going to consider some grant funding they received or that they're going to receive for the intake project, 19 million or so from the Bureau.
That pays a big chunk.
Yeah, I think it's a
$200 million project.
I think it's 250, yeah, something, or 200 million. And it's already debt funded. That project's already debt funded. But they were planning on potentially discounting rates based on that one-time grant funding too. So I think that's what we're going to hear on Thursday, probably something lower than 19%. I think, the city of San Diego wasn't going to support it. They were clear about that that was the big discussion at the last meeting. So I think they're kind of having to pull some of these, unusual. I don't know what to call it.
Rabbits out of the hat.
Without sounding offending. I don't. know what
Rabbits
to
out
call
of the
it.
hat.
Yeah, to try to bring that down as much as they can. So my guess is they're probably going to see something in the 15% range with these various other things going on. But I think, and this was brought up in some discussions was, I think you're probably going to the cash funding thing. I'm not sure how that really, the math on that, I'm not sure of. But using one-time grant funding to decrease rates, it's usually not the best practice. So you're probably going to have to pay for it at some point. I mean, it's just going to kind of defer into another year is kind of what it is. But, they're kind of backed into a corner as far as trying to get their budget approved. So that's what's going on. The only other big thing was they approved a big construction contract. That's the pipeline lining that's right here, pipeline 5, which is the raw water pipeline. They're going to do both sides of the San Luis Rey. And there's like a 40.
They're already working over on the north side.
I think that was something different. That was a slope stabilization project or something.
It's right there at the aqueduct.
Yeah, so they're going to come in July and they're going to come to the communication customer service meeting and talk about some of the public relations stuff that they're doing. And then they're going to come to the board meeting, give a presentation on the project. So you'll hear kind of all about it. So you know what's going on when you get questions. So,
Cool.
yeah.
I'm just kind of curious, did they inform all the agencies of how bad the water authority's financials are?
Well, they've been talking about it for the past few months, as far as this, what the necessary rate increases were. Started with, they laid out what they're saying, like 11%, which is just met us and some other inflationary cost increases. So stuff that's outside of their control. Is what they called it. So that was like 11% of it. And then they came back on top of that with, and here are all our things we need to shore up, right? We're short cash. Short cash, maintain our debt coverage, capital program. And so really all those things were kind of on the table. And that's where that kind of 20% came in. Like if they really were just going to pass a rate increase that addressed all those things, you needed 20%. And then it's just kind of whittled from there where they're going to accelerate some debt and do some of these other programs and things to get it maybe down to somewhere in that 15 range.
Actually, even they are transparent about this because even at the Citizens Water Academy, the very first presentation was on this.
Yeah, the staff has been very open about,
Very open.
I mean, it's all on the screen of what the needs and the shortfalls were. They've used because of the sales, missing the sales projection for the past 2 years with the wet weather. It's just cost millions. I think they were talking 40 million in reserves already for this year, that they've missed already this year. And that's happened 2 years running now. So you're talking, 100 million plus in reserve.
Sure glad we got out. That ship is sinking.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Take and pay is hitting them as well.
Yeah, they're below I think they're below the take piece. So they put some water in storage, but I think the storage is pretty well full. That's what we heard, that they actually might spill from San Vicente.
Yeah.
So you heard the same thing. It's kind of all been leveraged.
Put it in storage and watch it go over the spillway. Okay, San Diego CSDA,
Nothing to report.
LAFCO.
I actually missed the meeting this month. I was on vacation, and so I'll have to catch up on, I'll have to catch up. It didn't look like there was a lot on the agenda, though. I did take a look at the agenda.
And you had a briefing with Keen.
I did on our stuff. Yep.
Santa Margarita Watershed, River Watershed Water Master Steering Committee will meet next month. Meets quarterly for 15 minutes.
You have to stir something up in there.
Aqua,
Nothing to report.
committees, workshops, seminars, and training. And there. Board members' comments and requests to attend upcoming meetings and conferences or seminars.
Nope.
Nothing. A list of suggested items for the next agenda. Anybody has anything they want to add?
Next.
Nope.
Be quick or you'll have to wait till next time. We're adjourned then.